Go ahead and get started. Hi, I'm John Lee with St. Louis Real Estate Investors Association. This is our weekly update with Davis, Travaglini, and LLC. I say and LLC, but it's LLC, I think. Today we're happy to have Chris Basler. You're going to give us the updates, I guess, on what's going on. So welcome and thank you so much.
All right. So we don't have a huge change for those of you who were here last week or in the previous weeks. County is still not letting us do any sheriff's evictions. We continue to harass them, but that's still a problem. St. Louis City, as far as as of right now, there's no sheriff's evictions through September 1st. If you had any sheriff's evictions that were previously scheduled sometime in August, make sure you call the sheriff and get back on their schedule for after the first. I'm still hopeful that they won't extend it, but I've learned to not be overly optimistic in this time frame. Mm-hmm. Jefferson is still closed off to associate court hearings. We're trying to work with the judge to find out when that's going to happen. I don't have the information just yet. And St. Charles is relatively normal, other than there have some COVID measures in place, but you're going there in person and whatnot. So if you're filing out there, St. Charles is relatively back to normal at this point. I'd say the more interesting stuff that I guess that's developed in this last week is figuring out more about getting the CARES Act money that the city has for those in the city. For those who have properties in the county, I assume there's some county resources out there. I'm not privy to the process for them, but I assume it's something similar to what I'm dealing with trying to get my clients money in the city. Your tenant, we got a little more clarity. All money is capped at 3 months rent, and it has to be 3 months that were owed after March on, and they have to be due to COVID related things. So the application, if you haven't done one, requests, what were you making? Do you have a reduction in your wage? They need to have a reduction in wages or be furloughed or an hours reduction or some sort of pay reduction in order to qualify for the money. There is also mortgage assistance. I don't know for sure what the application for that is like. So if any of you have applied for the CARES Act mortgage assistance, we'd actually like to know what that's process has been like and what they are requiring. But the time frame that I understand for the general time frame to get this money is, we're being told, it's a 2-week turnaround. The money will actually get mailed directly to the landlord, and it's on the city website, St. Louis City itself website, the application process, and I believe the landlord can apply on behalf of the tenant. I mean, you're going to have to work with your tenant if your tenant's getting behind to get their information. They want to know social, they want to know what they were making before, what they're making after, and to make sure they qualify. So this is not something where you can just look through your tenant ledgers and go, all right, well, Susie owes me a month, I'm going to go ahead and apply for this money. You're going to want to talk to Susie and see, hey, what's going on? If the tenant owes you more than 3 months rent and you apply for this money, or the tenant applies for the money and it gets sent to you, because they may apply without telling you they're applying, and you may just get a check in the mail from the CARES Act fund. If you accept and cash that check, that you are accepting that they owe you nothing more than that check, or you're waiving anything else that they owe you. So you can refuse it if you say your tenant owes you significantly more, but if they don't and they're getting current, it may be a good way to get you the money. So for your tenants, if any of them are starting to fall behind in August, start looking around for this, calling out saying, hey, is it COVID related, and can we work together to get you paid, keep them current? And that's kind of going to be your best thing to do for that. And looks like Ann is saying she looked into it, and it's limited to 3 months. So 3 months worth of mortgage, and I guess I'd be curious to see what they're defining as COVID related, because I know my wife and I'd like to get some of that mortgage insurance.
Sure.
We certainly, we're not immune to what's been going on, but it'd be curious to see what the requirements are. So, and if any of you have had success getting money from the CARES Act, it's so early in the process. We haven't had any clients yet who have actually received the money. So we're all learning with them. I've been working with this conflict resolution company that has been doing mediations for my active litigation cases. And we've been, they help us apply for things, and they even have fast track money to get tenants done. They kind of resolve some differences. So we've become creative with ones who owe a little bit more than the 3 months, because there are ways to get around it, but you've got to be careful not to cash a random check that you get in the mail from the CARES Act, unless you talk to your tenant what it's about, and make sure that they don't owe more than what's been paid. Because if they do, let's say they get $1,000 and they owe you $1,200. Before you cash it, you're going to want to tell your tenant, hey, I got this money, but you need to pay me the difference of $200 before I cash it. So otherwise, I'm accepting that you're waiving that $200 legally, according to what the strings that are coming with these checks. So if you think you might have tenants applying for that, just keep an eye out, because I've talked to tenants who said they applied and my landlord had no idea they applied, because it does not require the landlord to participate. But you'll just get you may just get a check in the mail. So it's something to watch out for. Other than that, we're still, the city's, still letting us file cases. Court dates are not as easy to come by as they once were. My judge that I have, I've gotten some special court dates. His contract runs out at the end of the month. He's a special contracted. They brought in a retired judge, and we're hoping he gets renewed in September. We don't know. So that might make court dates harder to get. I know it's very tough to get any recent court dates for pro se landlords. And if you're doing the process pro se, you'll be pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised at how many more continuances judges are willing to grant, because the judges are so overwhelmed that if they see an out, they're going to take it. And we can stomp our feet all they want. I mean, I had trials this past week. The judge just had too much going on, and she tried to continue it for 6 weeks. I was able to knock it down to a couple weeks, but it was, it's just something that I've had a lot of clients who are just, I feel like wits ends are about we're about there. On the CARES Act, I understand today that the Senate and the House have now disbanded until September. So unless something weird happens, there is no moratorium federally right now on any of your property. If any of you happen to have Section 8 or federally backed mortgage properties. As we've been telling you, you do have to send a 30-day demand letter before you file, if you haven't done so already, assuming anybody was behind on these properties before August. If they're not behind in August, you could file right now. I know there was a big stink about President Trump issuing an executive order saying that it extended the moratorium. It did not. I read the executive order. All it did was instructed his people to try to look into ways to do it. I don't believe he's got any legal authority to do so, and he hasn't even tried. So if Congress doesn't do anything before this September 14th date, they're supposed to be done. If you have these properties, we may be able to file. I don't know what the effect of them extending it will be. I don't know if it will be like the first moratorium, that if you filed before it was issued, you're good to go, but afterwards you're barred, or they might make it retroactive. So it will be something that we'll have to see how that goes. We're all kind of playing it by ear. So I think the big thing is, don't count on the court system quite as much as you would normally have done, as we've been preaching here. Work with your tenants. For the ones who are working with you, try to get some of this government money. They said there was $5.4 million that the city has. I don't know exactly how much the county has access to, but my guess is the money's going to go relatively quickly. So, and hopefully there's more money coming in the future. I know, I know Lida was asking for more money to help out with this stuff. So we'll see if more money comes. But, if you got any tenants that are out of work, even if they think they can pay, get the money from the federal government while you can. That's be my advice right now. So, any questions? That's about all I have as far as a general update.
That's a good update, and it seems like still what you're saying, Chris, is still try to work with people if at all possible, if it's reasonable. Obviously, if it's not reasonable, then we're going to be talking to you. I personally would not go to court and try to do it myself, pro se or whatever. That just doesn't even make sense at this point. But as far as working with the tenants, yeah, that sounds like the best advice you have right now.
Yeah, particularly in the county when we have no real indication as to when the judge is going to allow. And I would say, not to discourage you from filing, but if you know someone who just they're not going to move, and you can't work with them at all, they're just ignoring you. Maybe the filing will smack some sense into them, because I think there's a lot of them who just are sticking their head in the sand and think that the moratorium applies to them, or hope that it applies to them, and hope that you're just not going to do anything. And so part of what some of this mediation work is being done and getting court dates is to get people. Because my hope is if we can get people current, or at least close to current, they'll start paying once they realize they're not in such a large hole. So that's kind of what we've been doing. I've been trying to get some of my clients who the tenants aren't quite cooperating with trying to get some of this federal money they could have access to, because if they just don't know about it or whatnot, or they just, they're not talking to anybody, to trying to get their names to these legal services attorneys who can call them and encourage them to do this mediation with us and go that route before we even have to file, which is something that I'm suggesting to my clients who could be barred in the future from the CARES Act, if we can at least try to get some money coming in. Because I know I've got clients who are telling me they've got they got bigger clients who the image of them is that these big multi-million-dollar companies. But I've got one, a 50 or 75 unit building that, because it was CARES Act and the tenants stopped paying, they lost phone service for 2 weeks.
Oh.
I mean, they haven't been able to pay their bills.
Oh, wow.
And so it's starting to get to the point where everyone, it's going to start hitting. I know it's probably hitting, it's hitting the smaller landlords, but it's working up the chain to so this idea that landlords, that I'm sure you will all agree with me, are not wealthy barons of industry they're taking advantage of the little of the poor people in their units. That story needs to get out there. I know Kathy, if any of you saw it, she the St. Louis Business Journal got out there and got an article out there. She called up one of the guys to try to get the word out and did an interview explaining the plight of the smaller landlord, hoping to kind of change some of the, because the judges who are making these decisions they hear the media, they hear the backlash, the landlords are bad, the tenants are being taken advantage of, we need to stop evictions. And I'm sure you all would love not to have to do evictions, but at some point, they either have to make it right, or if all the it's one thing to say all the tenants are going to evict, it's going to be a big problem. It's going to also be a big problem if all the landlords end up not being able to do repairs, getting foreclosed on, all this other stuff that is a natural. If you get all your tenants are $10,000 behind on your rent, it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Wow. Yeah, that's great advice there too, Chris. Yeah, I know just because you're bigger doesn't necessarily mean that you have more money. It's just different numbers. The percentages a lot of times are the same. You get, if you have 1 out of 10 that aren't paying, sometimes you can absorb that, and even though you lose money, you can make it up a little bit. But if you've got 75 and 70 of them aren't paying, you're in trouble.
Right. Right.
I can see that. It's just not a good situation.
Right, and a lot of times we use the rent and possession to get bad tenants out who are, they owe a bunch of rent, but the real issue is not that they haven't paid rent. But we can't do that, and a lot of stuff is, doing terminations. I've got one where it's, just a lot of criminal activity going there. We can't prove it because nobody's speaking out, nobody wants to testify. So people are just stuck in buildings that, in my client, the other tenants are fleeing, and and they can't come home, and it's just it's a tough thing. So we're working with the judges, trying to get them to give us outs for these moratoriums, going, let us petition on an individual basis and show you why these are not people who deserve the benefit of the doubt and are trying, because they're saying that, people, we want to keep them in there who are trying to get this federal money, but there's a lot of them who aren't. I've got one that my client is owed $10,000. Guy hasn't paid since March or February, and he comes by my client's office every day and brags to her that she can't do anything to him. We have a judgment against him. We just can't do anything with it. So he's clearly not trying to pay, not trying to get the government money, not trying to work with my client. on top of it, he's bringing in criminal elements. And so he just thinks it's a big joke. And, there's not a whole lot we can do right now. But we are petitioning the judge on a few extreme cases like that to see if we can get some special dispensation. So at the very least, we'd like him to see all these problems and not extend his moratorium in September, or if he does, put it on a very limited, like they have to be rent possession only, no other problems, less than 3 months rent, not have already done the moratorium, all this other stuff that does make sense to get the government money into the hands of the landlord.
Wow. Let's see. Somebody asked, is the city turning off the water to the buildings? Is the city offering any help to landlords since they don't want us to set?
Well, I mean, the city is offering help through both, they are administering, as we talked about, you can go on the city website and look up assistance for landlords, for tenants and landlords. That's what they're trying to help. They've also, again, hired this conflict resolution company and to help process it. And this company can actually, they can mediate, they do it all through Zoom, and they figure out, okay, particularly if you got tenants who you have a little bit of a disagreement as to what is owed, but you think talking it through can get them to do it. And these people can actually do the application over the phone for you. They'll do it for you. And they actually have a bit of a fast track to where they can get $1,000 within a couple days if they qualify, and then the difference from the city at the later date. So as to whether they're turning off water, I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I would suspect they are holding off, but that's just me guessing. Unfortunately, this rental assistance money is limited to, sorry, we got a new phone system. I haven't figured out how to turn it off. To do that disturb is easy. I lost my train of thought. The money that's there is only limited to 3 months rent, but I don't know for sure if it is limited to just rent. They owe 1 month rent, and if you're paying the water, say, and they're going to reimburse you for that, you might be able to get some, get it kind of finessed in there, so to speak. But they are trying to do it. But that's what the city's doing to try to keep people out there, is trying to provide some of this money to the landlords. And frankly, that's what the moratorium was designed for in the city. The more recent one was to pause everything because nobody knew about this money that was there, and they hadn't figured out how to administer it until August. So this pot was sitting there for landlords, or really for tenants and landlords, but they didn't figure out how to get it to people. And I'm not sure if any money's even gone out the door yet. I haven't heard, at least none of my clients have got it. I've got ones who applied, but nothing, and tenants who told me they've applied, but nothing's been received yet. So, I'd be really interested if any of you have applied, and, by next week, if any of you actually gotten anything. So that'll be how we see it actually coming down. But it is something it's a good program, particularly for ones who are just starting to get behind. So it's something that if you don't have it, particularly if if it's not beyond repair, that you can save them from getting too far behind and keep your own money coming in, then that'll be good.
Yeah, good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if anybody out there has applied for the money, we would love to hear about your experience with it. I haven't personally, because that's not where I'm at, but I mean, I know we have members out here that probably have applied for it, and we'd love to hear that. Love to hear what your experience.
All right, Ann's asking about unlawful detainer cases. So I'd say we've had luck. We can file them. Right now, they are caught up in the current city moratorium. In the county, even on unlawful detainer, we can't put anybody out. The city, we had the judge agreeing to let us do unlawful detainers, and then he had a second thought because someone told him that there's apparently some money out there to help relocate people who are having to move, because the money we're familiar with that we're talking about is to keep people in there. So there's other sources out there. There's a bunch of different agencies out there trying to get money to people. So maybe there is. My hope is that if he does extend the September 1 deadline, that he gives us an increased window, because already the only thing he let us evict people on is commercial spaces right now, and those 441 immediate evictions, drug evictions, where it's real serious.
Mhm.
Your regular unlawful detainers, I've got several that are ready to go that we can't put people out until after September. I've got unfortunately ones who were like scheduled the day after they, or the same week that they canceled everything. It's been rescheduled for that first week of September. So hopefully that sticks, and hopefully he allows us to do it on a basis, for those. So, but we can get judgments against unlawful detainers. They're in the same boat as it stands right now, with rent and possessions. But I would feel more confident that they will not be included in the next round. Yeah.
Mm.
So many people are part-time and don't qualify for the money. My tenant was told he was not eligible. From what I've seen, we've done applications where it is for part-time, because I had one where a gal was working 35 hours a week. It had her hours reduced post-COVID to 24 hours a week. Now, I don't know to say she's gotten approved yet, but I wasn't told out the front that they don't qualify. So now I don't know what your tenant in this question, which fund they went through, because there's a lot of different, I've had people doing Queen of Peace, people doing, all these different agencies trying to get money from different sources. So it may be that different ones have different qualifications. The only one I've applied for, helped my clients apply for, have been through the St. Louis City. And they asked them if you had they include a reduction in hours as due to COVID as a avenue to get it. Now, I don't know exactly what what they're looking at when they're reviewing this stuff. And I'm sure they're swamped trying to figure it out. I don't even know if they 100% know what they're doing. Every time I talk to these conflict resolution folks, they always start telling me, they're negotiating with the city about what they can do and how quickly they can get the money out to people.
Yeah, it's definitely unplanned situations going on, and it seems like it changes daily too with anybody I've talked to.
Yeah. I mean, as I can tell people, you're probably better off just watching the news like anything else. But I will say, keep an eye out when you hear things like eviction moratorium and this, that, or the other. Read a little bit deeper, because it usually doesn't always mean as bad as you think it does. It just means that certain things are blocked, and so you may not qualify. You may be out of it. So before you just go throw your hands up and go, I can't do anything, take a look at what's being said, and of course you can always call us and we'll explain it to you, or you can hang out here Friday mornings and we'll give you an update on where it stands. Hopefully, I'm hoping I assume eventually they're going to extend the federal moratorium. Selfishly, for my clients who are having problems, I hope we at least get a round of the bad ones who have been bad since January out through that process. But I don't know how they're going to handle that. And I'm not, I'm done being pie in the sky optimistic.
Yeah, it's more difficult now than it was a couple months ago as being optimistic. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, we were just talking in the office how we thought everything was going to get back to normal in September, back in April. We're like, okay, well the moratorium will pass, people will file, move on, and it's just
No,
not the way things are going.
No, if anything, it's more complicated now, and there's more questions than there are answers.
Right.
At least from what I've seen anyway. And that's why we so much appreciate you coming on here, Chris, every week, because you really fill in a lot of gaps that a lot of us, and a lot of questions that we are all wanting to know. We just don't, we don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's we're glad to do it. It isn't like we don't get to go out of the office and talk to people. I spend all my day now on a computer like this. I've spent, doing mediations for trying to get money to folks, trying to resolve cases, and doing court, and
right.
And calling clients. Most of the time, I spend most of my time explaining to clients what this means, why they can't do what they're used to being able to do, and why my hands are tied. So it's
right.
We're in a position where we're used to having all the answers, and now we have some of them. I spend most of my time giving bad news to clients, which is not what I like to do. Not a great business model.
Well, we appreciate it because you're on the cutting edge here, and you're, are the leading edge. I mean, this is what's going on in our real world, and we do appreciate you spending your time to fill us in, because this really helps a lot. Because I know a lot of people watch these on the replays, and it gives them the answers, that they're looking for. So it's just very much appreciated. Thank you.
I'm glad to do it. Any more questions before I get out of here?
Anybody else have any questions? You've done a great job updating us. Thanks again. I don't see any. Again, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. If you need anything from me, as always, please let me know. I'm happy to help you any way I can, although I can't help you the way you're helping us.
We'll see. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone, for coming. See you next week.